Well, hello and welcome to another beautiful day at our Balanced Body, Peaceful Mind Summit. And so I'm very happy to introduce to you our international speaker today, Robin Owen. She is talking to us from New Zealand, which is one day ahead of us. And so it's very gracious of her to join us here. She's amazing person. She is a founder of Discover Your Voice, is a Wellington-based speaking coach who helps people communicate with clarity, confidence, and authenticity. Once held back in her own fear of public speaking, Robin transformed her voice into her greatest asset and now empowers others to do the same. Whether it's a keynote, a big meeting, or a conversation that matters, she equips clients with the tools and mindset to speak with presence, purpose, and ease. Hello and welcome, Robin.
Hello, and thank you, Inga, and thank you for inviting me here today.
Absolutely. So you are here. I'm very, very happy to have you on Peaceful Body Balanced Mind Summit because it matters for us to be able to speak freely and easily in front of other people. So I believe you are very welcomed on our Health and Wellness Summit here. So a couple questions to you. So many people fear public speaking, and I'm one of those. So how do you help clients shift from anxiety and confidence to confidence?
Right, well, I help people refrain that public speaking fear into energy. So reframing it as energy, and then we work on that, on using that energy to create like a real presence and a real connection with others. And we do this by working together with a range of different tools and techniques. And we personalize it so that it is really for that one-on-one person. So rather than having a general thing, we look at what their actual goals are and what they need, and then we work on that together. So, and one of the things we start with is mindsets, that good old mindset. So things we might have been told as a child. We might have been told that we speak too much or we speak too loudly, or maybe we were told that we're too much as a child, or we're too disruptive. So it could have been a parent or another adult or a teacher who's told us these things. And of course, we hang on to those things when we're adults. So we work on the limiting beliefs that people have. So that self-criticism, that self-doubt, that lack of self-confidence. And we look at that inner dialogue and the stories that we tell ourselves when it comes to speaking. So one of my clients, so for example, she had been told as a child to tone everything down. She was too loud, and she was, she used her hands too much, and she was told to use her hands less. And one of the things that she was told was to actually sit on her hands, which, is just like hard to kind of comprehend really, because it's not helpful. So of course, so she sat on her hands, which meant that, this automatically toned her down. But of course, that also affected the way that she expressed herself, because our hands are such a large part of how we communicate. They're an extension of our voice, if you like. And so she actually wasn't really fully communicating properly, freely, I should say. And so when we got together, we worked on different things. But one of the things was I gave her permission, if you like, to be able to actually use her hands. And because it was actually something that she had to work on, I had to keep reminding her that it was okay to use her hands when she was talking. And now it's amazing, actually. It was almost like a floodgate opened. So now she loves speaking, and she uses her hands all over the place. And I think it's great because it's a real extension of her. It's her personality, and it's her being natural. And now she loves speaking, and she actually looks for lots of opportunities to speak at events. So it was a really nice outcome to see. And it was lovely to see her actually accept the fact that actually her hands are part of who she is. So yeah, so it was
Mhm.
really lovely. Um,
Absolutely.
and one of the benefits of working with clients one-on-one is and I do it either online or in person, is that working on one-on-one, you can create like a supportive environment. So it's safe to do it with when nobody else is around. So you can experiment with different tools and techniques without worrying about fear of judgment from others. And so that fear of judgment is a biggie, one of the many fears that we experience when we think about speaking. And there's quite a lot of them. There's a lot of people who oh, and actually, before I go on about fears, I just want to mention too that public speaking, in a lot of people's minds, people think that public speaking is speaking on a stage, a bit like a TED talk. But it's so much more than that. So public speaking is anywhere that you need to speak in front of an audience. So that might be an audience of 100 or 1,000 even. So it's anywhere. It could be holding a meeting or taking part in a meeting. It could be introducing ourselves at networking events. It could be giving confident answers in an interview. Could be giving a presentation. It could be sitting on a panel or on a committee. So there's any number of ways that we might need to speak, and that's in our professional lives. But in our personal lives also, there's things like family events. So we might need to might be asked to give a speech at a birthday or a farewell or an engagement or a wedding or even a funeral. So there's lots and lots of situations where we may be called upon to speak in public. And then as far as those good old fears go, apart from that fear of judgment by our peers, there's also that fear of looking silly, that fear of maybe making a mistake, that fear that somehow people are going to know how nervous that we are. They'll be able to see that we're sweating or that we've gone red in the face. And there's just that fear also of being taken as a fraud, that we might not actually know what we're talking about. So there's lots and lots of different fears that actually stop us from speaking. So in our work, we look at real situations. So we look at those things such as being in a meeting and leading a meeting. We look at how to give an effective presentation. We look at handling difficult conversations, because those are the things that we have to deal with in everyday life. And then once people feel calmer and more in control of their speaking, then the next thing we look at is how we truly are ourselves. So being authentic when we speak. So that's what we look at next. So
That's amazing. So I can totally relate. So I remember my days when I just came to US and I was taking English 101 with American students, and I was asked to speak in front of them and not on my native language, and actually to perform in front of everybody. To begin with, I am afraid of speaking other people in front of audiences. So I'm one of those people I was labeled since a little child. So that I was shy and I wasn't very outgoing. So I was opposite from your client. So, and I remember that, and I think it's the same. That's what you're saying. It's ingrained in us. It's our mindset that we have to just work on ourselves to get through. And I did speak in front of those people, in front of Americans, and I did very well. But I still, to this day, remember how I felt. So it wasn't very pleasant feeling, but it definitely felt very nice after it was all said and done and I finished with the presentation. So I totally can relate to everything what you just said. It's a hard work for some people. So, but it's now day-to-day work. So we need that. We need that in our personal life and our professional lives in every step of the way. It's absolutely true. So you saying that authenticity matters more than perfection. So how can we tap into our genuine inner voice?
So trying to be perfect when we speak can be really stressful, right? So, and it takes quite a lot of energy. Whereas being authentic, it feels so much more lighter, it feels easier, and it flows better. And it's actually a lot more nourishing for our inner self when we're being authentic with ourselves. So, And many people feel like they have to sound like a TED Talk speaker. And because there's so many TED Talks around, you know, that sort of has almost become the benchmark for how we need to speak. But in fact, I encourage people to totally release that pressure of sounding right or sounding perfect, and instead focus on speaking in a way that just feels really true to them. So, and not being ashamed or feeling embarrassed about it, because we're all different, right? So everyone has a unique style. And that's what people want to hear. People want to hear your unique style. Because if everybody sounds the same, like a TED Talk speaker, it actually becomes very boring. It becomes like yeah, it's bland in a way. So one of the tools I used is to help people find their authenticity and their true style, and and finding their true voice. So their voice that isn't strained or isn't forced or isn't their where their true voice lies. And it's so refreshing to hear a speaker who allows their true voice to come through, right? So somebody who's got that energy, who's got that individuality, and it's just so much more interesting to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients, we'll call her Sarah, she was amazing. She was brilliant. She was a senior analyst, and she has some incredible insights, but she was being completely overlooked when it came to promotions. And so she was watching her colleagues be promoted, and even though she had all this incredible material and incredible knowledge, um, her ideas never got considered in meetings. Her presentations always felt a bit flat, and she just watched, other people moving forward. So we worked on exercising and strengthening her voice and finding where her natural voice lay. So she was never quite comfortable with her voice. So we worked on um, exercises and strengthening it. And she felt so much more confident once she got her authentic voice. And it was almost like she hadn't given herself permission to use it in a way. She'd always been trying to impress people by what she thought they wanted to hear, or how but in fact it wasn't the best solution for her at all. So once she found her voice, it was quite amazing, really. She had all these amazing things happen. So she presented a major initiative to the executive team, and she got immediate approval for it. So they didn't even go away. They actually gave her approval right on the spot, and she was absolutely rapt with that. That to her was a big win. And then also her team started coming to her for leadership on complex projects that she was on. She actually got approached about a promotion that she hadn't even applied for, um, and most importantly, she said, "I finally feel like myself in a professional setting. So I'm a confident version of myself, though." So we didn't try and change who she was, but we identified what her natural strengths were, and we created a specific plan for her. So when we think about authenticity and being authentic when we speak, we we don't often think about the full quality and the breadth of our voice. So our voice, it's like a musical instrument, really. When it's used well, it's full of color, it's full of richness and depth, it's full of variety and tunefulness, really. And our voices are so powerful. I mean, we can educate people, we can inform, we can entertain, and we can influence. So our voices are truly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I include lots of exercises to warm up your voice and strengthen your voice, and also your face. And we look at ways where we can use variation in our tone, in our pitch, in our volume, and also in our pace. And all these techniques, they add interest and color to our voice. And that helps you engage with your audience and connect with your audience. And when you engage with your audience, they're far more likely to connect with you and remember what you're saying. So they'll be leaning forward, listening to your every word rather than sitting back and observing, as it were. And another way I like to add authenticity is by including stories. So I
Mm-hmm.
love stories,
Mm-hmm.
and stories are a great way to build trust and connect with your audience. And stories make you much more relatable. So people people can relate to stories through their own shared human experience. And also stories are a great way to help people retain information because we're wired to remember stories, and every culture has stories that have been passed down through the generations. So stories are, they're living things, if you like. And in a work environment, excuse me, I always suggest that people include stories when they're presenting data, because data by itself can be quite dry and kind of instantly forgettable, really. People
Boring.
don't, very boring, and people don't really remember data. But if you make that data come alive with a story, then people are going to be much more engaged and connected with you. And we've all seen presenters who stand up there with a presentation with the little tiny graphs and bar charts and stuff. And often they have data on them that nobody can read because it's often too small anyway. But by itself, that data is totally forgettable and totally meaningless. But if you add a story, you make that data real, you make it much more relatable. So, for example, if you have a graph that has perhaps statistics of a group of people at a certain point of time, and then um, a graph that shows them further on down the timeline, you can create or include a story that shows what their lives were like at a certain point in time and how their lives might have changed or improved um, if a change was brought about or a problem was fixed. And so that data then instantly becomes real because it's about people
Mm-hmm.
rather than just data that's on a graph.
Mm-hmm.
And so stories are a great way to connect with people both professionally and personally. And many of us will have come across great storytellers in our personal lives. So those people who become the life of the party, if you like, they draw people in. They their enthusiasm and their passion and their humor, and they help us imagine a different world, and they ultimately enrich our lives. So yeah. So being authentic, other ways you can be authentic as well is by staying fully present in the moment. So when you're speaking to people, to breathe deeply and just speak also with that warmth that's in your voice. So, and
Mm-hmm.
this will help the real you come through. And remember to smile too, because often when we get a bit stressed out by something and we get a bit too serious and we forget to smile, whereas smiling automatically kind of brings out your true self and it will warm you to the audience. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's
Absolutely. So you just
yeah.
answered my questions. I was going to ask you what practical tools can we use to ease ourselves in front of the audience. So thank you for
Well,
those ideas.
I do have some more techniques actually, and some really important ones. So that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. But one of
Mhm.
the most important techniques we can use to stay calm and grounded is our breathing, is by using really effective breathing. And when we breathe effectively, this regulates our nervous system and it helps to anchor us in the moment.
Okay. Mhm.
And when we get nervous, what we tend to do is we use shallow breathing. So that's breathing right up here at the top of the lungs. And this sort of breathing takes much more effort, really. And we have to take a lot more breaths to actually get the same amount of power.
Mhm.
And what happens sometimes is that people who breathe like this for too long, they can actually ventilate. So it's not particularly effective way to breathe.
Mhm.
So a far more effective way of breathing is to breathe deeply using our diaphragm. So this is where you inhale much more breath in, and it gives you much more control. And it also allows you to speak for longer without having to take another breath. So you're getting a really good amount of breath into your lungs,
Mhm.
and it gives you much more control. And also the way that we stand and ground ourselves can make a big difference when we speak. So when we really ground ourselves, like we're creating a real physical and mental steadiness, if you like. So when we're standing, really just feel the weight of both your feet on the ground and feel that support beneath you. So that really, really just helps create a feeling of steadiness. And also when we stand tall, it opens up our lungs. So if we're slumped over, it's really hard for that air to get in. But whereas we stand tall, we have much more self-assurance. And that tendency to slump over, we do that quite easily when we're in a meeting, like a Zoom call or in a physical meeting. We tend to kind of sit with our hand on our face
Mhm.
or slump forward. And of course, this does stop our breathing coming through easily. And also, we don't have that same presence if we're not sitting upright as well.
So true.
Yeah, and then my third technique is to always focus on your audience. So think about how you want people to feel rather than how you might be judged. So if you put the emphasis on the audience rather than you, that can also take away some of that fear that we feel. And of course, speaking of connecting, one really effective way of connecting with our audience is good old eye contact. And so try to connect with the whole audience as well. And some people, I know eye contact can be really scary for a lot of people. I've seen people look up at the ceiling. I've seen them look at the ground. I've seen them look towards the back of the room, or even out a window once. I saw somebody
That's
when they were
Ukrainian
talking.
culture. That's very
Yeah.
common in Ukrainian
And
and Russian
yeah,
culture, Eastern European. Yeah,
yeah.
they never look in the eyes. Yes.
Yes, that's right. And you're right. For some cultures, that is not
Mhm.
acceptable. But so obviously, so taking that into account, for if it's okay to make eye contact, then yeah,
Mhm.
it does definitely help you connect. So yeah, I appreciate that with some cultures that is not a good thing, but it's for those ones that it does, that is a
Mhm.
really good way to connect with people and make them feel that they're included with what you're saying. And just a point on this, and I've seen this happen, and it's quite fascinating. People can sometimes get caught up in a bit of a pattern. So if there's an audience, they'll look from that side of the room, and then they'll look over to that side of the room, and then they'll look back. And it's a bit like watching a tennis match. You see, you watch the person, and they're trying to cover everybody, but get so distracted with watching them with their eyes that you actually forget what they're talking about. So you miss what their message is. So yeah, so
Mhm.
there are a number of different techniques that you can use to.
So true, so true. And just bring some point from my nursing experience when I was in ICU. We were taking the course for ICU nurses that called CCRN course. And when I was, one of the instructors mentioned something that you were saying about. So if you, of course, the subject was very monotone and very boring, and it's all scientific, and it's everything just nursing related, and you can lose the track of what you're learning. You just kind of going in
Yeah.
circles and circles and circles, and you just don't stop remembering anything that was said. So what he said, he would just stop and make a joke. And every time he would make a joke, you could remember that information better. So you retain it better. So that was
Yes.
another, I think, a good point that I still remember from that class that I was taking. So that's very good that you mentioned that as well. And another
Mm.
thing that I heard somewhere that it was said, people will remember you or what you said, not what you said, but how you made them feel.
Mm.
Sometimes, yes, it just when we relate it and we just get so caught up in what we're saying and what we think, what they think of us, but we don't think about them as a human being, as a persona, as another just a person like you are. So we're all the same, we're all humans. And once you start relating to that person on that personal level, I think that makes a big difference in
Mm.
communication as well.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely.
So how does
Mm.
improving our speaking skills impact our other areas of life, as a personal, as career growth or self-worth? I know you
Mm.
mentioned that. Can you just a little
Mm.
expand
So I think, yes, I think a lot of people think of public speaking as being a very specific skill. So something that you either need for work or you don't. But the reality is that when you improve the way that you communicate, it has a ripple effect across all sorts of different parts of your life.
Mhm.
So it changes how you handle everyday conversations, for example, how you connect with the people around you, how you're seen in your career, and also how you see yourself. So I'll break it down. So firstly, we'll quickly look at career growth. And so it can open up amazing opportunities, as I mentioned in an earlier example. Um, and it's not so much how we present it's not the ideas that we necessarily present, but how we present them that can make a difference. And so when we speak with real clarity and presence, we're much more likely to be taken seriously, and perhaps that might come across as being able to be take extra responsibility, and we also might get invited for new opportunities that we hadn't even considered.
Mhm.
So, for example, if you come up with a process, an improvement to a process that could save your company time and money, in the past you might have perhaps mentioned it quietly to a colleague. You might not have, you might have just mentioned it in passing. But if you've got good, strong speaking skills, you'll be able to present it confidently to, for example, a senior leader, and might be able to answer more confidently with questions they might have. And so this instantly raises your visibility and raises your influence.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to relationships, so for friendships, for example, sometimes it can be really tricky if we're having an honest conversation with somebody, if something's just not sitting right. And so rather than avoiding having a conversation, which we can sometimes do if we don't want to face the truth, um, it's having that confidence to address what's really on your mind, and then being able to move forward from that. And that really keeps while keeping the friendship intact, rather than
Mhm.
um, just not raising the issue, because chances are if you're feeling it, then they'll be feeling it too. And so they probably will be quite grateful that you raised it rather than it just festering
Mhm.
away below the surface.
Mhm.
Likewise, in those tricky family dynamics, where you've got a big family gathering and you've got lots of people who are got different views. It might be political views or it might be personal views. And tension can sometimes get up there when it comes to family things. And so being able to kind of really listen to what people are saying and then be able to respond in a calm way, that helps the harmony much more than just reacting, and rather than thinking about it. So yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
And then another thing that comes to mind is those community type events. So maybe it might be a school committee or a sports club, or even a neighbourhood type meeting. And in those situations, many people hold back from speaking up because they're worried about what other people will think. So when we improve and get more confident with speaking, we it doesn't feel such a scary thing to speak up in those situations. And what you'll probably find is people will come up to you later and say, thank goodness you raised that issue, because I've been thinking about that for ages, but I just didn't like to say anything.
Mhm.
And so often you end up being an advocate, speaking up on behalf of people
Mhm.
who can't, or don't feel they can. So, yeah. And lastly, speaking confidently really helps expand your feeling of self-worth and your personal confidence. So it's like being able to stand up for yourself, um, and just being able to talk about things that you're passionate about. So, for example, if you've got a hobby or something like that, we might feel embarrassed about talking about it because it's something that we enjoy doing. But if we can talk, often people get caught up when they find out about what we do in our personal lives, like a hobby or a passion. That people often think, oh, I wish I could do something like that. So often it's like it's being brave to talk about things about ourselves that we wouldn't normally talk about. And it's the same with personal relationships. Being able to express yourself clearly so that you can get your needs met. Often you know, and we've all been through it, where we really want something, but we don't want to rock the boat. So we don't say anything, which just kind of makes us more and more resentful. So then things expand, and then we never really get what we want. And so we have this feeling of dissatisfaction and resentment. So being able to actually just get it out there, speak what's on your mind, and create those boundaries and being able to communicate and talk without being hurtful, it just makes so much, it just makes life so much easier. So ultimately, I guess confident speaking isn't just a skill, it's actually a wellness practice, if you like. So it nurtures who we are, it strengthens our sense of who we are, ourself. It gives us the courage to have meaningful connections, and it helps us build those relationships that we really crave.
Mm-hmm.
And too often our connection falls short, not because we don't care, but because our communication gets in the way. And so, or our lack of communication. So improving the way we speak just changes so many things. Yeah.
So
So,
true. So true. Can agree more. So
mm,
it's very hard to say or to see that, but you personally experienced some transformation from avoiding public speaking. So how did you overcome that?
right. Yes. Well, for years, I avoided any form of speaking up. I was a really, really underconfident and shy child, and so much so that my mother sent me to speech and drama training. So she wanted to get me out of my shell, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with the speech and drama college that I went to, or it was a private body, there were two paths you could go down. So, you could go down the performance path, or you could go down the public speaking path. So, you can guess which one I went down. I went down the performance mode,
Mm.
and I was no way I was going to have anything to do with public speaking. So I sat all my exams. I went through all my exams, and I ended up becoming an associate of the board, and so that meant that I could teach in performance mode. And I was absolutely fine at performing on stage. I was in many plays and musicals, and I loved being on stage. However, the reason for that was probably because I was safe being behind playing a role, playing a part, rather
Mm-hmm.
than having to truly expose myself, as it were. So I was fine with that. So all through my early teenage years, adult, even into my 30s, I still managed to, avoid speaking up, and putting myself into any positions where I would have to. And had it did have a profound effect on my experiences, though, because what happened was I thought that I was actually keeping myself safe, but in fact, I was keeping myself small. So I realized after a while that in fact I wasn't doing myself any favors at all. So the turning point came was when I saw people who were getting promoted, who were either my colleagues or either at the same level at me or below me, and they were getting promoted and I wasn't. And took me a while to kind of realize what was going on, but it was the fact that nobody really knew what I could do. They didn't really know who I was. I
Mm-hmm.
never gave my opinions or ideas on
Mm-hmm.
things. So of course, why would they promote me when I had nothing, that seemingly had nothing to offer? Um, so I ended up getting some help. I decided that it was time to finally get some help on this. And I found it was a surprisingly positive experience for me, which is like a real eye opener, because I never ever thought that I would enjoy speaking up. And it was like a whole new world opened up for me. And I actually enjoyed speaking up, and I actually really enjoy speaking in front of an audience now. And it was like a huge boost to my confidence as well. And that's one of the reasons I became a certified public speaking coach, because I know what it feels like to have a voice that feels trapped inside you, and to um, just not feel confident. And so I'm now passionate about helping other people um, take that step to finding their confidence and finding their voice, because I know what a difference it can make once you've broken free from that prison. Yeah.
Oh. Thank you so much. I still can't wait for that point to turn for myself to turning point when I can stand in front of the audience and speak to them. But this is the first step that I'm taking, and so far it feels very good. So from those people that actually thinking about going into public speaking, and highly encouraged to overcome that limiting belief, and just start believing in yourself. You can accomplish more than you can think that you can. So this is so true, so true.
Mm.
So for our audience, so what's one simple daily practice they can start today to strengthen their voice and confidence, Robin?
Mm. Right. So every day, find a situation where you can speak up, where you might previously have stayed quiet. So this could be something as simple as giving someone a compliment. I mean, I say simple because some people do find that a challenge even. Speaking up perhaps, or agreeing with a point that's been made in a meeting, perhaps speaking to somebody who you might feel a bit scared of speaking to, like somebody who seems like in there, a bit higher up or something, and you
Mhm.
previously thought, but starting a conversation with them, even if it's just a simple conversation, or simply sharing your ideas with a colleague or an associate. And while you're doing that, just remember, breathe deeply. And that makes taking a deep breath and just pausing can make a big difference to being able to actually have those conversations. And it helps you to steady your nerves, and it helps you to speak slower as well.
Mhm.
And this small practice, just a small practice of speaking when you would normally stay quiet, it just gives you that mental clarity. It gives you that just a little bit of confidence. And you think, oh, actually, I can do that. I can keep doing that. Um, so finding your voice is all about, it's much more than just speaking. It's about creating space for your ideas, for your stories, and for your presence, basically. And when you speak with calmness and authenticity, you don't just change how others see you, but you also change how you see yourself, and that's just a real biggie. So yeah,
Mhm.
so that's how I believe, and I hope that everyone listening today is able to take just that one small step towards being much more confident and trusting themselves.
Oh, that would make such a big difference in a lot of people's lives. Thank you so much, Robin. That was an eye-opening experience, especially for me and myself too. And I'm sure there's a lot of people could relate to that as well. So for our audience, how can they get in touch with you? Would you give them information about yourself? And we will be sending emails, but I just want to hear if there's any special
Okay.
ways.
Sure. So I have, there's various ways I can get in touch actually. Did I give you my LinkedIn information and stuff like that? Did I think I
I
might have.
can't recall.
Yeah,
No.
it's
Mhm.
all right. I can find that out. But yes, so either by email, which is robin@robin-owen.com, or via my website, which is robin-owen.com. Um, Also through my LinkedIn site, and I'll make sure you've got the link for that. And I
Mhm.
also have a free ebook which I've created too, which has got some nice tips about feeling grounded and more confident when you speak. So I have the link to that as well, which you can share.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm definitely
Mm,
gonna check this one out myself.
mm.
Thank you, Robin, so much. Thank you for taking the time to speaking with us. Thank you for changing so many lives and being such a positive motivation for a lot of
Oh,
people.
thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I really enjoyed it. So thanks. And I hope the
Amazing.
rest of the summit goes well.
Thank you
Mm,
so much. Have
Thank
a
you.
great day and enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.